Hello, good evening, happy Wednesday. Welcome to Live in Conversation. My name is Daphnée Antoine,
And
and
I
I
am
am in conversation. Go ahead,
I
introduce
was gonna
yourself.
say,
I'm
and I
sorry.
am Daphnée Camilien
Awesome, off.
of Chameleon
Chameleon
Law.
off.
hmm
Awesome. We both in the Chicagoland area, and we have live in conversation weekly every Wednesday to share information with regards to immigration notes, resources to thrive, as well as guest interview to share people's experiences, knowledge, and the expertise with you all. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We're going to have an informative discussion this evening. But before we get started, let's start with our disclosure, as always.
Sure. I am an attorney, and anything that I say this evening does not create an attorney-client relationship. The information that I discuss this evening is for information purposes only. Renee is a fiduciary Renee is a financial entrepreneur. Anything that she talks about this evening does not create a fiduciary duty between you and Renee. All information provided this evening is for general information only and for information and for entertainment purposes only. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's also add that for our guests this evening, as they are all licensed health professional.
Absolutely.
So anything they say as well is
Right. So,
information purpose only.
information purposes only, and for entertainment purposes only does not, constitute medical advice. Please,
Yes.
if you have any type, we are talking to mental health officials this evening. If you feel like you need mental health, please talk to your doctor before doing anything
Yes,
dealing
yes.
with
Or
your
you
health.
can reach out to our guests. However, do not take anything that says in the show as medical advice.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So with that being said, it's Wednesday. Attorney Chameleon is here every Wednesday. She share or give us updates on all things immigration. So let's get started with that.
Sure.
And please share. I see you all. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Please share, comment, join the conversation.
Sure. Immigration is popping right now, as they say. There's a lot of stuff going on. I will talk about a couple things, and we'll be watching what's going on in the next couple weeks as far as changes that are happening in the United States immigration system. The two things I'll be talking about today, one is Patel v. Garland. It's a case that just came out on Monday, and then also Title 42, and I'll explain what each of them are. So, Patel v. Garland is a case where you had a gentleman who filed, who came to the United States, undocumented and or overstay. It doesn't really say, but he didn't have up to date papers. He's been in the United States for many many years. He had a pathway to citizenship to get his green card. He filed to get his green card. We don't. I didn't know the articles I read said exactly if it was through marriage, or son or daughter or parent. We don't know. But regardless, he goes and files his immigration paperwork. When he's filing, it's discovered that I don't know if he disclosed this or it was just a background check, which is because a background check is done when you file for your green card. Regardless, it's discovered that when he went to get a license, at some point when he got a license in Georgia, there's a box on the license paperwork that says, "Are you a citizen or a non-citizen?" He mistakenly checked off. He said he mistakenly checked off citizen, right? And so because he checked off citizen, um, in immigration, the rules for immigration is you can never say that you're a citizen when you're not a citizen, right? Because you're not allowed to get those benefits, and that's just the rules for. That's the rule, right? If you're not a citizen, you're not supposed to say that you're a citizen. And so by him checking off that box, they're saying that he violated immigration laws. So now, a couple years later, when he goes to file for his green card, that is a big flag that's brought up. And then because he did that, he's denied his application. And not only is he denied, he's put into deportation proceedings at that point. It was him, his wife, I believe, and one of his kids was put into deportation proceedings. So once that occurred, he was or basically he said it was a mistake. They didn't believe that it was a mistake and ordered him to be deported. He appealed that, so he was in immigration court. He appealed that to the U.S. Court of Appeals. Um, they also, I believe, said that he should be deported. It was not a mistake. That he broke that he checked that box off purposely, is what they believe. The case was brought all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States on Monday in a 5-4 decision. They determined that the courts cannot look at factual mistakes, right? So they're not, the Supreme Court wasn't determining whether he should be deported or not. They were looking at whether they can even, like a court can go ahead and change a immigration judge's decision. So it's kind of confusing, but what you got to know about this is it's a big deal in the immigration world because it's pretty much separating non-citizens from citizens and saying that um, when it comes to certain like legal rights in the judicial system, um, when you're a non-citizen, there are certain rules that Congress has set out, and you're not going to have some certain access to appealing your case and seeing if you have a mistake on an application and saying the judge has made a mistake. I'm going to appeal it, and you should look at what's going on. That right is not afforded to a non-citizen. So that is important to know. It's a lot of in the immigration world. Um, if you're an immigration advocate, you may believe this is a step back. It's pretty controversial because it's saying that non-citizens are not going to be given the same judicial, you know, when it comes to immigration, is not going to be given some of the same rights as citizens in the judicial system. So when it comes to appealing cases, we're talking strictly in immigration cases. So that should be considered. It's very complicated. So that's one thing. The other thing is Title 42. Talked about it before. Title 42 is what was implicated under President Trump. And President Trump came up with Title 42 because he said that basically it's denying non-citizen immigrants who are coming here, who are trying to file for asylum, denying them the right, especially people at the border, denying them the right to file for asylum because of health and safety issues, because of COVID-19, saying that the United States could not absorb these people and they were going to come here and possibly have health have COVID and spread it in the community. And because of health and safety, we can't accept these people into the United States or even take their asylum cases. And so that the Biden administration wants to end Title 42, and they have put a deadline of May 23rd to end Title 42. A lawsuit is currently pending in federal courts from people saying that Title 42 should not be ended, and the federal judge is set to decide on whether to decide on it on Monday, right? So, if a federal judge says no, Title 42 should be upheld, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked at the actual lawsuit that was filed to say whether what their purpose was. Maybe they're saying COVID is still rampant, that Title 42 should still stay in place. But if a judge says that Title 42 should still stay in place, then Title 42 will stay in place, and the officials will still be denying people entrance into the United States, saying because that they are health and safety to the citizens of the United States. However, if it is if it's taken away, uh, then what can happen? So there's a lot of people who are waiting at the border who want to file for asylum. They will come and they will have to be processed. It will be a lot of people. I'm sure you will see tons of people on the news. I'm sure it probably would cause, unless there's a plan in place, you will see it on the news, and it's possible that it could be a lot of people apply, sitting there and coming through and consistently coming through, um, trying to apply for asylum. Last month, in the month of April, over 234,000 people tried to come um, through the United States. It was reported to file for asylum. Um, and so then that was a record number. So and they're anticipating a lot more. So that's why I said this, you will know, this will be a big news story, because they need to have the capacity to process the people and to figure out next steps. So we'll see what's going to happen. Uh, there's immigration news happening all the time. And there's also, it hasn't been put in place, but there's been a proposal to set much stricter asylum rules. They're trying to change some of the asylum laws. And if people don't remember asylum, people can come here and claim asylum. Asylum is saying that basically you're being persecuted in your home country and you can no longer go to your country because of, you know, uh, for fear of persecution, of death. A lot of times there's persecution. And yeah, so that's, if you're granted asylum, you're allowed to stay in the United States. So people oftentimes do come here, and they come to other countries too. That's not the United States, when they're fleeing from their countries because of persecution. So back to you, Daphne. But there's a lot of things going on. I will keep you guys updated on the latest immigration news. You're on mute. You're,
Awesome. Thank you, Attorney Camillion, for always sharing with us or updating us with respect to immigration news. So, for all of you who are watching, maybe who are interested in this information or who know people who this information matter to them, kindly share this information and reach out to Attorney Chameleon. As she just informed you, making a mistake can be costly when it comes to immigration. So if you don't know, seek the assistance of somebody who does, and definitely Attorney Chameleon knows. So she can be reached at 847-410-9022, and her website is chameleonlaw.com. So today we have a great show. It's an informative show. We have been celebrating women throughout the month, and our topic for this evening is motherhood and mental health. And we have two mental health professionals who's gonna discuss this topic with us. But I do wanna do justice uh, before I introduce them. I wanted to say Happy Haitian Flag Day to all the Haitians watching right now, whether you are home or you here in the US. I wanted to do a brief kind of history on Flag Day, but I did not want to keep our guests waiting longer. And then so I'm just gonna just do a quick sentence or two, letting you all know that May 18 is the day that the Haitian Flag Day is celebrated both in Haiti and globally, where anywhere Haitians are. And then so it was initially uh, so this is the flag that was done on May 18. Obviously, there's so many different variation of our flag, but the one we currently have now was created in May 18, 1803 by a woman, Catherine Flon, a Haitian seamstress, and basically one of the heroine in respect to the Haitian Revolution. And so, as we are celebrating women, we are celebrating Catherine Fleur, we are celebrating Flag Day, and we are celebrating women everywhere who is making history, who's participating in any level in society, because at the end of the day, everything you do matter, whether it's at home, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your business. We want to let you know that you matter. And then so now we're going to talk about why your mental health matter. Yes. So Tony Camille, anything you wanna add to that? I forgot to
No,
be on follow as always.
no, it's fine.
All right. So it is 8:22. Again, thank you to all of you who are joining. This is Live and Conversation, a show where we share immigration news, resources to thrive, and bring guest interview who can share the knowledge and expertise with us. So, with respect to the topic of today is motherhood and mental health. I'm going to introduce our guests for this evening. It is such an honor and privilege to have them with us. So, without any further ado, give me 1 second. All right. So, our guest lineup for this evening is Fedna Eliasin. Please correct me if I'm wrong. A social worker. She is also a mother and a community advocate. So, as a social worker, Ms. Eliasin works in the capacity of mental health, providing individual and small group counseling to high school students. And she also hosts the podcast Lay Sorting, basically to open trauma one at a time. We also have the privilege of having with us Dr. Madeleine Eugène. She is a doctor, nurse practitioner. She is a board certified psychiatric mental health and a certified adult gerontology primary care nurse practitioner. So she is passionate about helping her patients achieve optimal health. And so we welcome both of them this evening to Live in Conversation. Hello, ladies. How are
Hello.
you? Thank you for being our guest this evening.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me as well.
So I'm just gonna go by alphabetical order. I'm gonna have please say your name so that I'll make sure I'm saying it correctly. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know who are you and basically introduce yourself. Thank you.
Sure. So my name is Fedna. You said it correctly, Fedna Ilyasin. I am in Florida. I work as a school social worker in the district where I live. I serve high school students. As mentioned, I am a mom, and I love my community. So shout out to May 18th. There is a festival going on right now and I am missing out big time, but I'm all here and I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. Thank you. And Dr. Eugene, if you can kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Dr. Madeline Eugene. Welcome everyone to the chat, to the conversation. It was a beautiful introduction, so there's nothing I really want to add to it, but I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I'm a doctor of nurse practice, no, nursing practice, and also I do adult gero primary care. So I combine both of them to help patients get better. Um, and I've been working in as an NP since 2018. I've been a nurse since 2013.
Thank you for being with us this evening. So, Tony Chameleon, I'm gonna put it in your hands, kind of like start us with the questions. I'm sure this lady are ready for us.
Sure. I would ask you a question, Dr. Medley. So do you have a doctorate in nursing?
Yes, I have a doctorate in nursing. Yes, Madeline.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how did you get into the medical, or what made you go into the medical field?
My mom is a psychiatric nurse. She's retired, but from New York, and so she was my person I looked up to. So that's what got me into nursing and gotten me into doing psych.
And what about you, Ms. Fedna?
So, growing up, I always knew that I wanted to help people. You all know that aptitude test that you take, it always says either a nurse
or social worker, except I enjoyed working with people in a different capacity, which is to help them to be able to feel whole. And it's very close to nursing. In fact, I went to school and did all my prereqs for nursing and then had a change of heart and decided that social work was for me. And so I went from undergrad all the way up through my master's.
And then why the psychiatric field and mental health?
For me, mental health has always been something that I guess in our community that I saw, even though at a younger age, I couldn't necessarily understand what was going on, but I knew that, there was an issue and I needed to help. And so the more I learned about the field, the more I became interested. And then I started in high school, I started mentoring, not mentoring, but shadowing people within my field, as well as when I graduated high school and college, I had family members who were in social work. So it was just easy for me to just fall in love with the field and be part of it.
Sure. Daphnée, did you want to?
Yes, I also wanna ask because we basically touch on this real quick, kind of like some of the stigma when it comes to mental health, especially in our Haitian community. I know Fedna, you briefly touched on that. Do you think there is still a stigma when it comes to mental health? Anyone can take it.
Well, there's always still going to be a stigma in mental health, especially in the Caribbean culture, especially in Haitian culture. I mean, if you look at what recently happened to the mother who killed her two children in Florida, that is a big example of postpartum depression or a mixture of any psychosis as well. We tend to, and I'm not going after churches or anything because I am Christian, but we tend to say, okay, either the person is being persecuted or we just need to pray a little bit more, but not addressing the situation at hand. So, what is the most important? I try to incorporate the whole idea of trying to, like, when you go to your primary, you get your physical. We have to think of that as mental health too. Go in and get a physical for our brains. So, I think it's really important to look at mental health as significant as we look at the rest of our body.
Yes.
Yeah. And
And
I'm in total agreement with you, Dr. Eugene. It's so true that there still is a huge stigma within mental health. I cannot tell you the number of times as an educator as well as a mental health educator that I've called families and they still think, something wrong mentally with a child means that they're crazy. And so that usually stop them from going after the necessary services that they need. And also encouraging the child to be open to services that are available to them. So it's still an issue, and I know not just myself, but many healthcare professionals in our community are on a regular are trying to explore it. And I will say, lately I've seen a lot of posts on the Haitian American Facebook page where people are talking about um, childhood trauma and things like that, all because it wasn't addressed. So it makes sense that I think our generation maybe is seeing it, but the generation before um, did not really, or still having difficulty adjusting to the changes or accepting what mental health is and how to receive services.
Let me ask you, because Dr. Melvin, you talked about getting a physical, and then also about mental health. What are your? I'm sure you're a proponent, or maybe you'll tell me something different of therapy and the importance of therapy. Um, how what do you think about therapy? Is it something, because you hear now people should say are saying um, therapy should be a preventive versus just going, when you see a problem. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, therapy is a big component, and especially in relationships. If you're going to marriage, you're going to go into a lifelong commitment, having counseling before marriage, or even therapy while you're in school. Because, like, think of it when you were a teenager in high school, how kids can be mean. To have someone you can talk to trust to explain and express how you feel. I feel like it doesn't hurt to go for you go to speak to a stranger to speak to about different things. Like if your parents don't understand, maybe you feel very depressed, you can't get out of bed. At least someone will recognize it and give you the proper treatment, and also lead you to the proper authorities. So meaning like if you go to therapy, oh man, I feel like I want to hurt myself. At least that therapist can refer that patient to the hospital, and that patient can have treatment versus, for example, someone who just passed away. I think it was that young teen, like was she in her early 20s, or she was
Yes.
in college or something, cheerleader, and she was
Yes.
suffering with depression and no one knew it. So going to therapy is that first step to getting some type of mental health care. And then like if it's necessary, then to get like medication to help improve the symptoms that the person's experiencing.
Thank you for sharing that. I know, Dr. Eugene, you briefly mentioned the case of the Haitian woman in Florida. I want to say allegedly um, killed her two young
Yeah,
children.
allegedly.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the news is out there, but then I guess we have to say that. And then so it does take a lot for someone to get to that point. And then so, and you just mentioned about how, therapy should be preventive. And basically, I would say growing up maybe in a Haitian household, like were there ever discussion in regards to mental health, so people can know that it's okay to talk about those issues.
Well, when I was younger, well, I think I had a better, I'll explain it. It's not the typical because my mom was already in the mental health field,
Yeah.
so I had that portion. My dad was like, okay, mental health, you work on a unit, and that's, but it wasn't that much of like discuss feelings and stuff, but I had some sort of idea if there was an issue. But a lot of Haitian households, it is kind of taboo to talk about it, truthfully
Yeah.
speaking.
Are uh, did you want to say something, Fedna?
Oh, I can. I'm in full agreement with you. It is very taboo to talk about mental health, and I too think I was at an advantage where my family they were aware of what mental health is, but didn't know how to articulate it or define it specifically. So they knew the person wasn't right, especially at church. Again, I too am a Christian, not to baffle any church or religion. It's just that, a lot of things that we see in our community, as you know, l'église va à l'école, so we see most of the stuff that happens at church. And when we see it, we question ourselves, or, you go back home, you wonder, the person who really caught the spirit, was that the spirit they caught, or was that some type of psychosis, or um, something other than what we saw, or the kid who runs around church and everybody wants to talk about the mom and saying that your kid is bad, let me help you fix him. Is that, now we know this kid might very well be diagnosed at school as ADHD, but before, um, none of that. And it could be a vast of things, but it was just not mentioned in the community, in our community as a whole, but I guess different for every household for sure.
Do you have do
Well,
you have any hold on, someone has a question.
yes, someone have a question. Thank you to all of you who are watching. We appreciate it. This is live in conversation. We are in conversation with Dr. Madeleine Eugene and I'm sorry, Fedna Eliason. I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. So we have Valenzi who has a question. She says, how best to address ADHD during adulthood, especially when dealing with late diagnosis? So I'm sorry, Valenzi, prior to when the show started, we did mention that anything we say here is not to be considered as medical advice. So whatever the ladies are gonna say right now is basically their opinion and not medical advice. All right, but guess go ahead. Whoever wants to take it.
Well, it takes several tests to check for ADHD, especially in adulthood, because there's a lot of factors. We look into the childhood, we look into the grades and things like that. So it is best, like I said, just to see depending on what state you're in, to seek out a psychiatrist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner for the diagnosis, or to at least assess for that diagnosis.
Anything you like to add, Miss
Yeah,
Elias?
so I'm not too familiar with what happened in adulthood. I think she was asking if, what happens if you're diagnosed later on and what does that look like. Um, so I would say, just follow. It's good that as an adult that you can get that diagnosed if you feel that, and you got it from a professional. The best thing to do for sure is to follow your doctor's order and continue along with it, and whatever that the recommendations are, continue with them. And I think that goes back to our stigma question. That's great, you're able to name. A lot of times we have situations we don't know how to put a name on that, or a title. So you can now describe, oh, okay, maybe this is why I have difficulty focusing, or that one exam I always wanted to take, I can't focus to pass my exam. And now, if you wanted to get your doctorate, you can go for that. And I'm not saying that, being on medication will do that, but, getting the right assistance can, or services can help you to better outcomes.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, for answering that question. Thank you, Valendy, for posting your question. We appreciate you commenting and participating. And let's get back to our own questions. And so, anybody else who has a question, feel free to type it as well.
Sure.
And so, oh, go ahead, Daphne.
I was gonna say I had a question. What are some tips you guys can provide for preserving our mental health, or even maybe some personal things that you guys do um, to, you know, protect your mental health?
Always like taking some time for yourself. Self care is number one. Um, Pretty much I say this all the time. If you don't have time for yourself, how are you going to have time for other people? So just like the analogy when you're in the airplane and they say, everybody, the mask coming down. You got to put it on your face first before you put it on somewhere else. Because the point is, if you don't put the mask on you, you'll be down, another person will be down. No one can help each other. So
Yes.
that's one simple thing right there.
Especially as moms, like we want to model, and I'm going to be a hypocrite right here. We need to model to our kids that healthy self care is important, and that we should prioritize ourselves so we can help, like we're saying, Dr. Eugene, our families. Um, and if you look at our families, and I can use my mom as an example, they don't really know how to stop. Like it's go, go, go. And I think it's time that we change the narrative and learn what it means to say no and stop when we need to stop. Um, Especially now, we just want to do, we want to go, we want to um, be and everything. And sometimes it's not the best for us and for our families. And if we are the pillar in our household and we lose it, who else? How is our house or our home is going to stand?
And so we briefly talked about why like it's important to seek therapy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then so, but at the same time, when we look at accessing therapy, not many insurance does not pay for it, and especially for moms, single moms, family who are struggling to take care of the family. And so now they're saying, well, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. And so what advice do you have for someone who's in that position?
Well, as there's a lot of websites that they are taking more insurances, more the national insurances, even Medicare, Medicaid. So I feel like that was years ago. There is providers that do take insurance, like such as myself. I do take insurance, and what is a time saving and costing less money for people is just doing like any type of tele psych. So doing like video appointments, so you save your money on gas because gas is very expensive now, and you don't have to be in a waiting room with other people waiting for the appointment. You'd be waiting for hours. So it's convenience. You save the time seeking out someone online versus going in person, especially with people with kids running around. You can't bring
Yes,
all the kids to an office.
yes. Anything you'll add to that, Elias?
So I like the fact that right now we have the convenience of healthcare being provided to us online. Like Dr. Eugene said, we have the accessibility in the comfort of our own home. You can go into that closet, you cry and have your moment with your therapist. And it's on a regular and you don't need to travel. And if there is that fear, the stigma of being seen, then you don't have to be seen. And it's just your time. And it's another way of self care to say to your family, okay, I have 1 hour on Wednesday with my therapist, and that's just my time. And it doesn't have to be at home, it could be anywhere that you feel safe and comfortable and okay to share because it's good to have. I'm just gonna divert real quick because in our community we don't really have that trust, especially women. It's hard to trust someone with our inner, and we're taught that way to keep our issues to ourselves. Um, and now you have to meet with a random stranger and to share with them things that you may have never shared with anybody or wouldn't even speak out loud to yourself, and you have to be vulnerable. But the good thing about it is that just know that it is a it's a career for the person, and that this person should be following protocol in terms of confidentiality, and that it is safe. And for me, I always say, I have tons of stories. Like I couldn't share your story. Um, and it doesn't do anything for me except if I know that I'm helping you. So seek help.
What about what are your thoughts on teletherapy versus in person? Do you believe it's just as effective? I'm a I'm into technology. But I know not everybody is. So what are your thoughts? Is it just as effective? Is it more effective? Because, like you said, you can do it in the privacy of your own home. You can do it anywhere. um, or do you see anybody resistant and prefer to be in person?
Um,
So,
Anyone can answer.
okay, so for me, I will say last year I started with telehealth, um, and I've had a lot of pushback from clients because it's new. Anything that is new usually is not received well, and it's hard to find people to commit to it because they're at home, they're doing different things. So I find myself, even though you scheduled sometimes with clients, they do not adhere to the time. There are different clients. The population I work with is very different. Clients who self-admit or self-admitted, they're probably easier to work with. But versus clients who are court ordered or have had something that happened where they're required or ordered to do it, usually are not committed. So there's that drawback. But and for those people, they want someone and probably would do better in person versus virtually, because in person, then your office can be a safe space for them, especially if it's someone that abuse happened to them and it occurred to them in the home and they're triggered by something while in session. So I think to answer your question, it depends on the client and what suits them. But for me, as a mom working a regular job and doing therapy part time, it's more convenient online to know that I could just be home and schedule clients. But at the same time, it's not always convenient for the clients, and clients are always our priority.
Yes.
well, I do agree. There are some patients that need in person for the safety reason, but with my experience, a lot of patients did like the whole being at home because they can do multiple things at the same time. I can't express those stories, but I've had so many of them. But they loved that idea, and once they heard they're going back in person, they felt a little leery about it. Like, oh man, I have to go back and wait and spend time here, and I could get something done. I could be at the store talking to my therapist or trying to get my hair done. I, I, I've seen different ones, but it's just the comfort. So for those who can be doing telehealth, it is the idea you have the connection when you do face to face. Now, there's some people who want telephone, which is trying to phase out, but it is best. Any therapy in person on video is effective no matter what. Because even if you're in person, you're still speaking to the same person. It's just the setting that's different.
Yeah. And then so I know with regards to seeking therapy, do you think that it's a valid fear? Some people may say that, well, I don't want to be able to share something with my therapist and then having been criminalized, or especially mom saying maybe that conversation may cause me to lose my child. Do you think that's a valid fear for a mom or someone to have um, when seeking therapy?
Well, it's best to go and seek help now than if something worse happened that you can't even go to anyone to speak to anymore and you're in jail and you wish you should have, could have, would have. Um, it is the best option, just like when they say if you tell the truth, it will be better for you than if you lied and then they find out. It's the same thing with therapy and mental health. You going to seek help will be better for you, and not everything that you think is bad is actually bad that you'll be criminalized for.
I
Anything you
agree.
like to add?
I Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, and then I had a question.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and one thing I always say to families is that would you rather um, and conversations of suicide. Like, would you rather to find out something terrible has happened to your child, or that they are actually labeled as they think or criminalized? And for me, if it gets to the point where the person needs severe help, not severe, but help, that they more than likely are not going to be functional in different areas of their lives. So it's better that it's treated. And I always tell them that there are turnarounds, that people do have great successes from receiving therapy, from um, receiving counseling, and especially for young or males, I've always shared with them that it's it's good to receive counseling because it provides you with that outlet versus getting angry and storming off on someone and end up, hurting someone. Um, Same with girls and anybody that could use counseling.
Can I ask you a question or two when we were talking about trust earlier? Are you just to touch on confidentiality and mandatory reporting? I don't know if you know what I mean by mandatory. Are you guys mandated through your licenses to? I know different. Well, I'll just say this: mandatory reporting. And what instances do you have to mandatory report? And also your confidentiality with clients.
It's a great question. Dr. Eugene, will you start? Okay.
Can you repeat the question for me? Because I didn't. I don't know if you heard Dr. Eugene. I missed some parts of it.
Oh, I was saying if you could talk about confidentiality with your
Hmm.
clients, like what, like, is there something you say? Is what is the rules, and then also mandatory reporting in your space. So I think you said, Fedna, you work with school, high school kids.
Hmm.
Um, what are because mandatory reporting means something different for. Well, I'm an attorney, so there's certain things that are like
Yeah.
I can tell you afterwards, like what I have to say, right? But what I have to do. But almost everything goes with me except for certain instances. What about you? That's what I'm saying.
So for us, our confidentiality, which kind of like the disclaimer you guys did in the beginning of the podcast or live, is that I always share with my clients that what we say in here, it stays in here, and that unless you are desiring to bring harm to yourself or someone else, then I will have to report. And usually I will, especially I find with teenagers who've lost that trust and they probably have had a history of working with people and will say, what makes you different? What makes you not going to call my mom and say that I just shared X, Y, and Z with you? Well, how will that help your parents? And we do. I know right now, you probably know, attorney. In the state of Florida, we have a lot of laws that are being put in place, particularly in the schools, because families want to know. So for us who do therapy in the schools, we're kind of like at a limbo because parents do have rights to know, but at the same time, our field says that we have to hold confidentiality. So it's like, where do you draw the line? Um, Oftentimes, for me, I know I do not get too deep because I can't. And I work at a large high school, doesn't allow me the time and the space to do it. But in my other job where I do provide therapy, of course, um, I do adhere to confidentiality and make sure that it's maintained for the client as well for their well-being. Unless safety is a concern, and that could be domestic violence, that could be just about anything.
Your thoughts, Dr. Madeline?
Um, it's pretty much like a reiteration, as if you're going to cause harm to yourself or anyone else, we have to. But other than that, what stays in the session stays in the session. Unless you bring a family member into the session and say, "Oh, I want her to hear it," then that's
That's
when.
true.
But other than that, whatever's said in session stays in session.
Whatever it says in the session stays in the session. We have 3 minutes left, and then so we do want you to share basically if you are accepting new clients right now, how can people reach you? If someone wants to basically speak with you. I know. Oh, Dr. Mali, you have your website, and I know Elia sent you working
Still
on
in the works.
it. Still in the work.
We are
What are
looking
you
to
sending
do,
work? We should face Facebook, Messenger.
yes, Facebook and Messenger, of course, just like you found me.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking to relaunch our podcast, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's exactly what we're talking about here. Having worked in mental health and as well as in the community, I learned that the exact same topics that we shared here that are not really shared. So the name of the podcast is Laye. I don't know if you guys know what Laye, the device that is used in Haiti to sort crops.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of times we just use everything and not sort through, and that could be our personal issues, our careers, generational stuff, to be able to have an open space to discuss those issues openly with one another, and also allow the opportunity for us to bridge through generations. I don't see ourselves doing this, and I will say that I enjoy these type of podcasts and conversations, but I feel like I'm like, man, we're preaching to the choir here. The people who really need to hear it are not listening. So what do we need to do? So I still struggle with, do I want it in Creole and as well as English, to make sure that there is a community out there who desperately need those services. We don't want to wait until they're vapor acted or until the worst,
Yes.
for them to have the information. So I am on Facebook Live. I mean, Facebook. You could find me on Facebook, or my email, Fidna Eliasin, first name, last name at gmail.com.
Okay. I'll type that in the comment.
Are
Thank
you
you.
on Facebook? Are you on your name under? Is it
Yes,
or is it okay?
my name. Yeah.
And also one last thing. So if someone wanted to come to you, are you guys are by state, right? Licensed by state, so you
No.
or no?
So I'm under an agency, and we normally receive clients through the state. So I'm not something very different.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's not private. Not there yet.
there, okay. And
Okay.
Dr. Madeline.
Hi. Well, I service all of New Jersey. I have a website as well. I have a website called relaxyourmindservices.com where you can sign up for therapy and for med management. Oh yeah, look at that. So I love doing both, and I also do weight management and coaching too, financial coaching. But for therapy and med management, you can contact us below. You can choose whichever service you want and schedule for an appointment, and then fill out the contact below so we can contact you. We usually contact within the first 24 hours. We are verified by Psychology Today, and we're also on Headway as well. And I am taking new clients. And if you're looking for either therapy or med management, or you want to have someone take over your medication that your partner was doing, then I can take over as well. But it was a pleasure to speak to all of you, and happy May 18th, even though it's
Happy
only like close to
May
the end of the
18th.
day.
Thank you. Thank you so
Well,
much for coming,
thank
both
you
of you.
You're
definitely
welcome.
both of you for coming and sharing. We hope that people who need this information will actually listen to it and know that it's okay to seek therapists, to seek a mental health professional, to just chat and basically helping you to process life. And so thank you ladies for doing that. Thank you for being on our lives, and we wish both of you all continued success in your journey. Attorney Camilla, any last thing you want to add?
No, just a thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank
awesome.
you.
And so, last but not least, anyone who may need Attorney Camilla assistance with regard to immigration, feel free to reach out to her at 847-410-9022. 847-410-9022 and chameleonlaw.com. This has been Live in Conversation. Have a great evening. See you all next Wednesday. Bye for
Good
now.
night.
This was Dr. Madeline Eugene, and so no support, no. Uh, give Fedna Elias.
It's the easiest name, but that's okay. Usually I expect other communities to get it right.
I get it, but
But
I just wanted to do it for Daphnée Antoine to yeah. Thank you everyone. Have a good night. Bye for now.
bye. Good night.